What the hell just happened?
Captain?
Sarah, what just happened? What did you do?
I used the remaining fuel plus any electrical charge I could spare to perform a short leap.
Well, good thinking, but now we're completely powered down and we don't stand much of a chance against Stormer like this.
She'll be able to track us down within 8 hours if my estimates are correct.
Well, may as well see where we are.
Oh right, I forgot. When the power levels are almost non-existent, the plane goes into a self-defense mode, locking the canopy and all access points. Don't worry though, we should have enough solar energy to disengage that protocol in about 4 hours.
So, 4 hours until this thing unlocks. What the hell am I supposed to do in the meantime?
Well, it is June 22nd, 1995, and we are near Nickelodeon Studios, Orlando, Florida. Sound familiar?
My first review. Well, there really is no better place to talk about my subject than, well, right here, to be honest. So, till next time, I've got one question. Do you have it? Here we go again. Okay, my look at adult versus kids game shows is about to get serious. And since it looks like I'm going to be stuck at Nickelodeon Studios for a while, let's kick things off with this one. Think of it as an American Gladiators for kids, or a seriously scaled down Olympics. Only one question remains. Do you have it?
In the not-so-distant future, a time-traveling experiment known as the Tempest program was undergoing their first live trial. This did not go according to plan. Unknown to anyone, an extra-dimensional force, known by the call sign of Orion 3, seized control of the test aircraft, hurling plane and pilot off course and around time. Their mission, the complete destruction of Tempest 1. Now, faced with incredible odds against him, the game show reviewer ducks in and out of time, still managing to review his favorite game shows while staying one step ahead of the evil forces, and all the while still hoping that his next leap will be the leap home.
You know, as pilots we're often told not to wear our mission patches when we're actually out here on a mission. To be honest, I never understood it. What's wrong with showing a little pride in your mission? Howdy y'all, I'm your game show reviewer, reviewing the game show greats and the occasional dud. But we're a few miles out from Nickelodeon Studios, Orlando, Florida, to kick off a serious look at the famous Nickelodeon game shows. And, well, let's be honest, anyone who knows the shows I'm talking about knows that they're anything but serious. And to be totally honest, I would have loved to go visit today's show sets, but, well, circumstances seem to be working against me. But let's not let that stop us, and let's kick off with a little behind-the-scenes information. The television station known as Nickelodeon, otherwise known as the Channel for Kids, had humble beginnings. Its official launch date was April 1st, 1979, sort of a spin-off of a similar channel that was part of an experiment known as Cube, which we aren't going to go into. Nickelodeon struggled in its early years, almost being a sort of second PBS and always finishing dead last in ratings. Well, nonetheless, they persevered, and beginning in the late 80s and early 90s, they struck gold. A combination of kids' sitcoms and kids' game shows made this station successful at last. Focusing on their game shows, their very first one was Double Dare.
Take a risk. Take a chance.
No, wrong Double Dare again. This time I'm referring to the one hosted by Mark Summers.
And control of the game show where players get cash but darers get Double Dare.
This show was soon joined by others such as Finders Keepers, Think Fast, Wild and Crazy Kids, Get the Picture, and so forth. Of the shows I just mentioned, only one remains very well known today, that one being Wild and Crazy Kids. In 1992, two major successes were launched, Nick Arcade on January 4th and Nickelodeon Guts on September 1st. And this is the object of our focus today. We'll get to Nick Arcade at a later date. Or earlier date. Or anyways. Okay, before we get started with the show proper, we need to address something. More often than not, Nickelodeon Guts is compared to an adult game show, American Gladiators. And for the most part, this is justified. I mean, come on, they're both sports themed, they both have extreme challenges, and they both have a very intense endgame. How can you not compare the two? Well, we're gonna try, mostly because I want to focus on the kids' game shows right now. Okay, preface out of the way, let's get to it. Welcome to the Extreme Arena, and this is Nickelodeon Guts.
Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida. Welcome to Guts, the action sports show that's gonna make you sweat. And now, today's fearless players wearing...
Let's start off with host Mike O'Malley. This was not his first Nickelodeon game show hosting gig. He also hosted Get the Picture from 1991. Let's cast him in the role of hyperactive sports commentator because that's exactly what he does here. He's the guy who walks us through the slow-mo replays, the guy who conducts brief interviews on the sidelines with the players, and so forth. Now, this is a sports competition, we need a referee. American Gladiators originally had this grim Reaper wrestler thing that eventually gave way to the more traditional referee. Well, Guts skipped that whole Reaper thing and went with Maura Quirk for co-host and official ref. Good call, Nickelodeon. Her job was to explain the games for the audience and reveal the scores at the end of the events, and of course banter back and forth with Mike.
And Mo, I know you got to get back down to the field.
I have to leave you, Mike.
But we're going to get ready. Don't worry, you won't be leaving me for long. We're going to be coming up with our next event right after
Okay, this is going to be weird for me because this show's format was never quite ironclad, I suppose would be the word. We have 4 preliminary events, one of them being an aerial style event, one of them being a track style, one of them a field event, and finally a water-based event, or pool-based event. Very Olympics-like, I must say. However, we look at the leaderboard and we see there's a 5th row. That's for the end game. We'll discuss that at great length later. But here's what I mean by the show's format not being locked down. The 4 events were shuffled around, so we might start with an aerial event one day and a track event the next. In fact, even went so far as to the point where we could have 2 aerial events in the same day. It was kind of bizarre. But it did keep things interesting, that's for certain. So unfortunately, like the famous Price is Right pricing games, I don't have nearly enough time to go through every single event that ever appeared on the show. I mean, just look at this list. Oh, there's my favorite. Yeah. So here's what we're going to do instead. I'm going to queue up a slot machine of, say, 3 different events from each of the track, the field, the aerial, and the pool events. Not in that order. And we're just going to go through those 3, okay? So here we go. Joker, 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 yes! Okay, maybe 3 people in my audience got that joke. If you're one of them, congratulations. All right, for real now. Okay, I like that. Let's start off with the basics. This is a fairly unique one as it's one of only 2 events classified for gym. And technically the other one is a remake of this one. Basic training consists of a 6 or 7 event obstacle course. First was a climb up a wall or cargo net, followed by either a swing or balance beam walk to the next platform. Next, the players would hit the ground running from a zip line or pole, running into probably the most famous part of this, the elastic jungle. Basically, this is a messy tangle of elastic bands that the players must navigate, sometimes not so successfully. And sometimes this would be replaced with a tire crawl. They finally climb up the final platform and either free fall into the airbag or slide into the pool. Very basic. Literally. The 1994 season renamed it Extreme Baseball, but other than setting this in a diamond shape, there was seriously no difference. Slapshot is a take on hockey. Basically, in 3 different lanes, the 3 players would try to hit a ball into a goal. The twist is that the goal is revolving, so this isn't as easy as it looks. The player with the most goals at the end of 60 seconds takes first place points. This is one of the original 1992 events, and as you could probably figure out, it's soccer. Players simply act as the goalie against an onslaught of cannon soccer balls, and whoever had the most blocks at the end of 30 or 45 seconds wins. The one and only thing to watch for in this was making sure the player didn't step outside the box. Doing so would incur an automatic 3rd place award. Now you might have noticed something. At about this point we've played through one entire event, yet we don't even know any of our players beyond their color and nickname. I mean, it'd be really nice to know who we're rooting for, right? Well, fortunately, at about this point, there was a segment that slowly introduced us to our players called Spill Your Guts. In the first few seasons, Mike read off some quick information about our players. Later, it was the players themselves telling us a little bit about themselves. Not much, but just enough to get to know them a little better. The first segment was done after the first event, the second was after the commercial break, and the third was right before the final event. Nice, quick, and simple, and it doesn't drag on the show's pacing. I approve. And speaking of pacing, how about we find out what our next 3 events are, huh? Okay, from track, we've got Moon Race, Tornado Run, and Mad Max. Well, to be honest, what else did you expect with the track events? Of course it's going to be running around the big indoor track. Well, let's start off with Moon Race. It's literally a straight race with moon shoes. That's right, the objective is to get from the start to the finish without jumping out of the designated lane. First player to cross the finish line wins. But a simple run around the track can get boring, so enter Tornado Run. Here the objective is to get from the start to the finish line while navigating this maze of obstacles. Now, originally the 3 players ran at the same time, but beginning in 1995, following a serious injury on the show, the players ran separately with time being the deciding factor. Wait, what's that? Still not challenging enough for you? Okay, fine. Let's try that with Wild Wheel vehicles. Just like Tornado Run, the players had to navigate a maze of obstacles, but now they had to do so on these wacky tricycle things. This could be interesting to watch and pretty entertaining actually. And as usual, fastest time wins. And if that still isn't complex enough for you, well then too bad, I've run out of clips for track events. Howdy y'all, and welcome to the Reviewer and Sarah Halftime Show. And if that sounded lame, well it was, let's face it. But, you know, that's what they did on the show in 1994.
Welcome back to Guts. It's the Mike and Mo halftime show. I'm Mike, she's Mo, and somebody's going home with a glowing piece of our awesome rock. But we're only halfway there, Mo.
Yes, we are, and we've got some little bits and pieces to be looking at. They're called highlights, you know.
Maybe it was padding. Okay, it was certainly padding, but in this segment, the Mike and Mo halftime show, the 2 hosts would converse about what they saw during the first half of the show. My only comment, John Madden, you ain't. Let's keep moving. Okay, let's look at a few of the water-based events. There's some commonality with these events. For instance, they all take place in a large pool at one end of the Extreme Arena, and with very little exception, all made use of these water jets dubbed rapids, used to make the event just that much more difficult. Perfect example is whitewater. Pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Players would have a paddle and an inflatable raft. The objective was simply to paddle out from the end of the pool and back again, going around 2 buoys in the process. Failure to go around the buoys would incur a 5-second penalty. Fastest time wins. This event was actually reworked later into Wave Runner, which featured pylons instead of buoys, and waves created by a wave ball instead of the rapids. This is a rough one. The objective of Skirfin' Safari was for the player to pull themselves across a pool while strapped to a water ski. Again, the rapids were active, and there were 5 buoys lined up in front of the players which they had to navigate around in both directions. Failure to do so resulted in a 2-second penalty per buoy. And this one is just weird. Totally Tubular was one of the events that didn't have the rapids active. They probably would have made this event way too difficult. All 3 players played the event at the same time, so the pool was divided into 3 lanes. All they had to do was swim from one side to the other and back again. The catch is that they had to put on several inner tubes over themselves during their outbound swim and continue to wear them on their return swim. The rules are also fairly strict, as failure to swim to the end of the pool before the return swim or missing any inner tubes would result in disqualification. Harsh, but when you're actually racing the players instead of the clock, I guess I can understand that. And we finally reached the final category of events, the aerial events. I saved this for last because this seems to be the event category that they really loved. I mean, more often than not, they would actually have 2 aerial events and no track event. So let's see which ones we're talking about. Let's start off with one of the original events. Bullseye is pretty much a variant of archery. Players were armed with Nerf-style crossbows and Velcro arrows. All they had to do is jump off the aerial bridge, off the ground, and hit the target. One kind of bizarre rule, though, was that they must touch the ground before taking their shot or it won't count. Can't say I ever really understood that one. But in any case, the player with the most hits in 60 seconds wins. Next. This is sort of a longest jump competition. In triple jump, players would have to jump from the aerial bridge onto a smaller incline platform, then over a set of barrels, and finally over a high hurdle before landing in the sand pit. They had 2 attempts to get the most distance on that final jump. Simple, right? Well, here's the rules. Players must land on all designated platforms, they must clear all obstacles, they must clear the final hurdle without touching it, they must land with both feet on their sand pit, all while holding their breath. Okay, I'm kidding about that last one, but failure to comply with any of the above rules would result in disqualification. Wow, talk about rules central there. And finally, we have 0G. This one's not too bad, relatively speaking. All players had to do is run this track. The catch is that the track is at a 90-degree angle, and the track had obstacles such as hurdles and trampolines referred to as black holes. But the worst one was the edge of nothing. This was a sharp turn around the edge of the track to the other side. I think I can label this as probably one of the most bizarre events this show ever saw.
Painting, I think I like that, Mo. And we got the mountain coming up. Everything you could want in a mountain climb and more. Here is Roar.
And welcome back, dear viewers. We've completed our 4 events for the day, and it's time for our end game. And you know, thinking back, we've had quite a few game show end games on our show, haven't we? I mean, from the insanely impossible to the fairly tame but intense.
Up into the temple, he's gonna have to move quick. 21 seconds.
Patch over their eyes.
A fish?
A fish with things that are hot.
Stop it already!
$17,046. A difference of $46. You win both showcases.
You've got a queen? Come on. Double or nothing for $2,800. Lower than a queen! No!
During what months of pregnancy does a woman begin to look pregnant?
September.
Lebanon, do it. Yeah, China, Wuhan, China.
1939, which epic film has its premiere in Atlanta? Gone with the Wind or The 10 Commandments?
Gone with the Wind.
All right, one more. He did. He grabs that leg, throws it to Susan. She's got nothing. She wraps it. Is this right? Yes!
Yeah, none immediately come to mind either. But we can safely say this. Kids' game shows more often than not had the most intense end games. From Double Dare's obstacle course to Legends of the Hidden Temple's Temple Run. You can always count on a kids' game show end game to be breathtaking and intense. Guts was absolutely no exception. On one end of the extreme arena was this behemoth of a mountain. Standing a proud 28 feet tall was the famous Aggro Crag. This was the centerpiece of the entire competition, where a player who was in second or even third place could end up winning the whole competition just by finishing first. I really don't even think I need to do an explanation of the rules or how it worked, because this event read off by Maura Quirk was pretty much ingrained in whoever loved this show back in the 90s. Let's go over to Mo. Mo!
Players will start at the sound of my whistle. Each player has an identical side of the mountain to climb and may not cross into another player's path. During their climb, they must light up each of 6 targets located on their side of the crag. The first player to set off all the targets, including the final one at the peak of the mountain, will receive first place points. Mike!
As our players...
There were 3 different versions of this mountain. First, the original Aggro Crag in Season 1. This crag was 28 feet tall and only featured about 6 targets to activate, but also featured a rock slide from the peak that was triggered when players were about halfway up, along with the standard water and smoke blasts. Season 2 saw a 7th target added to this crag, but not much else. Season 3 brought some big changes to the crag, which took on a new grayish silver color and a new name, the Mega Crag. This crag featured blasts of steam and vapor all along the course as usual, and also featured what was called nuclear flying crystals and a new feature just before the peak of the crag, which was a 5 or 6 foot vertical climb. This final obstacle actually added an additional 2 feet to the crag, bringing it up to an even 30 feet. There was also one other feature here, atmosphere. An eerie track of subtle rumbling and distant explosions, termed by Mike as the sound and fury of a dormant volcano that's ready to blow, had been there from the start, but combined with the cascading smoke and fog and the different lighting effects, it just made this crag seem like an incredibly intense challenge. And unsurprisingly, it got better in Season 4. Global Guts featured the Super Aggro Crag. All the features of the Mega Crag were in place, but it added other features such as Boulder Canyon at the very beginning, the rock slide from Season 1 was back, and a sudden blinding snowfall as the players scaled that sheer wall at the peak. Although, personally, I think the Mega Crag is my favorite one. I think the Super Aggro Crag just went a touch overboard with the obstacles and rules, such as the players needing to touch every single rock in Boulder Canyon.
Players, on your mark, get set, and...
So it's pretty much a straightforward event, climb to the top, claim the points. Well, all I can say is I hope you paid attention to those rules, because the penalty for a rule violation is an automatic third place award. And after the day's crag had been conquered, Mo would reveal the final standings, followed by one more replay segment, and finally the awards ceremony. The Olympics theme creeps back in here, with the awards being a bronze medal for third, a silver for second, and of course a gold for first. First place also had one other trophy, that being a, quote, glowing piece of their radical rock. I assume they're referring to the Aggro Crag, but something here has always bugged me. Where exactly would that have come from? Which part of the crag glows green? Nitpicking? Maybe, but it's my show. I'll nitpick if I want to. Global Guts followed up the awards ceremony with a lap around the track in true Olympic style, with the winner's national anthem of their home country playing. An excellent way to cap off an excellent run.
Step on down and take a bow, folks. No ifs, ands, or buts. These folks got guts. Do you have it?
Well, this is normally the part where I go into history and all that, but let's face it, Nickelodeon game shows barely had enough history to cover a sentence or two. So, see, it's about 4 hours. Time to head off for Adventures Extreme. That's what I'm talking about.
Ah, yes. There's no place like home.
Okay, Sarah, just open the canopy, please.
All right. Of course, Captain. Uh-oh.
Sarah, why isn't my canopy open?
Sorry, Captain. The protocol is disabled, but the locking system is jammed. Give me a few minutes.
And by that you mean...
I mean, go ahead with your review.
Yeah, figures. Well, luckily Nickelodeon Guts did have a bit of history behind it. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, while Nickelodeon Guts did have a longer run than most kid game shows, I kind of already gave away most of the history, didn't I? Let's see, I guess I could clarify a few details. Episode 101 was on September 19th, 1992. The first few years, the show was largely unchanged, just adding an event here and there. Right, there was the occasional to-be celebrity on the show. For instance, future Backstreet Boys band member AJ McLean appeared in 1992. He didn't do so well here, only winning a single event. Let's see, Season 3 introduced the Mega Crag, you know about that. In 1995, the show was relaunched internationally as an Olympics for Kids, so to speak, and renamed Global Guts. Basically the same rules applied. Wait, I know what I left out. You know how I'm always commenting on whether or not a show is deserving of a modern-day relaunch? Well, in this case, I don't have to wonder or merely comment. I can just show you. Hold it! I've been accused of not giving remakes a fair chance, that I'm viewing them through nostalgia goggles and therefore completely misjudging them. I swear, I will not do that with this show. I will give it a fair chance. My Family's Got Guts premiered on September 15th, 2008. Hosting was Ben Lyons, with Asha Kirtan taking the referee position.
What's up, everybody? My name is Ben Lyons, and this is My Family's Got Guts. We are here in the all-new Extreme Arena, where two families are getting off the couch and into the action, going toe-to-toe in a series of extreme sports that will push these families to the limit. One of these teams will be going on...
Oh man, it's like watching Ben Stein host the show. Seriously, he sounds like he's trying to be excited, but he's coming off as a sort of loud bored. There's another one to take note of. I won't ever use that term again. Ben, all I have to say is, Mike O'Malley, you ain't. As for Asha, I must say she makes a good replacement for Mark work. Don't get me wrong, I miss having Mo here, I really do, but Asha doesn't do too badly here. Although I can't help but wonder if she was hard partially because of the accent, though. First thing I want to say here is, despite it looking more flashy, this is in fact the original Extreme Arena at Nickelodeon Studios. But what I can't figure out, though, is why it looks like it's about half the size for some reason. Well, anyways, in this show, we had families instead of single players, and we only had 2 per show. In theory, not a bad direction to take the show, but the end result is each player only plays 2 events instead of the 5 from the original. And we also have something new here, a tournament structure. I will admit I like this change. It gives the team something to fight for beyond the end game. They're fighting to stay in the tournament. Unfortunately, here's where my praise ends. This show is 30 minutes long, plus commercials, just like the original. So, why are we only able to include 3 events, endgame included? To be honest, I think it's because of all the flash and trash that's thrown in. The new gut check segments introducing the families lingers for way too long. Nothing like the old Spill Your Guts segments. The replays also seem to drag onward and onward pointlessly when we've just seen the event. I could make the same accusation about the original show, but that show felt fast-paced enough to compensate for it. Well, it wouldn't be a Guts show without a climb up the legendary aggro crag, would it? Well, I present to you the legendary behemoth of an endgame.
Welcome back to My Family's Got Guts. I'm Ben Lyons here with preliminary tournament action between...
Correction. I present the top half of it. Seriously, where's the rest of it? This new white crag doesn't look imposing or ominous. It looks like the centerpiece of an ice skating rink. Come on, people. Remember what the original crags were like? Those 30-foot mountains seemed genuinely frightening, terrifying, and almost evil. When you conquered that monster, I'm sure you got a feeling of accomplishment. This 22-foot tall obstacle course looks like the wall from American Gladiators with a little bit of basic training thrown in for good measure. This crag is a joke.
Avalanche beat, he or she will have to activate the ice portal, behind which player number 2 awaits. Once the frozen gates of the ice portal open, then player number 2 will have to steel themselves against the chill fear in their hearts and traverse the glacial gorge and face the cliffs of the vertical freeze.
Oh, that's never good when you have to tell people what to think of your endgame because it looks too silly to be taken seriously. Okay, the whole show doesn't deserve it, but this endgame does. The point system was screwed up too. Once again, taking cues from American Gladiators, we now have the points meaning nothing more than a head start on the crag. It ends up being nothing more than a race to the finish, almost making the entire 20 minutes of show before this completely superfluous. And let's face it, 10 of those minutes were already superfluous anyway. The one thing that sort of stayed true to the original show is the trophy is once again a glowing piece of the mountain. Actually, all 3 of the trophies winnable here could be assembled into a miniature aggro crag. I would say cute, but when you can run the course again using the miniature trophy, it just kind of shows how shameful this crag was.
What an amazing race. No ifs, ands, or buts. My Family's Got Guts. Peace.
My Family's Got Guts lasted for 2 tournament runs, ending a 2-year run on October 10th, 2009. Not a bad run, I must say. And that's really it for this flop, so let's wrap things up. Nickelodeon Guts falls into the sports-themed kids game shows, and it did so masterfully. This was like an Olympics for kids, or an American Gladiators for kids, which was quite popular at the time. The entire episode was a struggle to stay in the lead so you can make that final ascent up the famous aggro crag and come away a champion of a competition that awarded you with a gold medal and a unique trophy. I mean, come on, you've got to admit, because I will, that you wanted to get on this show and prove you had what it took to succeed. The International Global Guts took it to a new level. Kids from all over the globe in the same arena wanting to prove the same thing. It became the Kids' Olympics almost in that regard. I'll also say, for all its flaws, and oh man are there a ton of them, the 2008 relaunch had its heart in the right place. It just didn't execute the concept as well as it could have. I guess you could say they didn't have it. My seal of approval goes to Nickelodeon Guts and Global Guts, pushing competitors to their limit, trying to find out once and for all, do you have it?
He deserved it here, folks. He earned it. Certainly did. No ifs, ands, or buts. These kids got guts. Do you have it?
Oh, sweet, merciful fresh air. Okay, and with that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm your game show reviewer, reviewing the game show greats and the occasional dud. I'll see you next time.
Okay, now all we have to do is wait for the solar collectors to charge a little more. Oh no.
That phrase is getting a little overused these days, Sarah.
Oh yeah? Here's another one. Leap event detected.
That one not so much. Where?
Right about there.
She's going for Nickelodeon Studios. But that doesn't make any sense. There's no one there right now.
Actually, sir, there is. You.
He's there right now reviewing Legends of the Hidden Temple. Sarah, how far is he or Sarah?
Just about ready to film the Steps of Knowledge stuff, sir.
I'll never make it there on foot. Sarah, this plane can jump around in time and space, right?
Not sure I'm following you, sir.
Well, can you leap a few seconds into the future and jump the plane onto the Legends set?
I can't leave the plane there. That'll never fit. However... Grab your comlink, sir. You're going for a ride.
Alright, but I don't see what good this is going to get. Oh, that's interesting.
I downloaded myself to your comm link again, sir. I have an open comm line to the plane to keep an eye on it.
Just a hunch that you left us in space, but not so much in time?
Correct, sir. Just like we did on the Card Checks review.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I bet this is a perspective you never thought you'd have on your reviews.
The second round of play. It was here that the show's high-intensity, high-impact physical challenges would come to a crashing halt for a trivia round. First off, the legend of the day is set by Olmec, ending with some object, either real or made up, in the temple somewhere. After the legend is set, Olmec would ask questions. Sarah, usually I just saw something move in the temple. Yeah, I can understand.
Not something, sir. Someone.
Legend as told maybe had 5 questions in it. Only 2 teams would advance forward from the Steps of Knowledge and onto the third round of play, the Temple Games. Let's join them now.
Actually, let's not, Captain.
Great, here we go again. Captain, get down!
Space Monkey Mafia Studios.